Arcane has been Riot's bread and butter for the past 3 years, because let's face it, League of Legends has been on life support since quarantine finally ended, and MOBAs are not everyone's cup of tea. Arcane has gathered so much mainstream attention than League could ever imagine. This series brought the casual viewers into the sweaty world of your everyday Discord mod level 7 Yasuo main of Runeterra. But with the end of the series, the door is left wide open to the massive world the people at Riot Games have been building for the better part of 16 years. With the final episode airing at the time of this recording, which is November 23, 2024 PEST, the fans have never been this invested in the future of the franchise ever before. Yes, I said franchise because, ladies and growers, this is only the beginning in Riot's climb to the very top of the animated series mountain. But with such a massive world, where does Riot even start? Now, I know it's basically confirmed that Noxus is going to be the next focus of the spin-offs for Arcane, but I believe they know exactly where to start off right after there. In the heart of Runeterra, a king that puts racism to shame lays dormant, waiting for Riot Games to pull the trigger on their stories. If you thought Zaun and Piltover had this rich of a story to tell, Demacia is going to put the jet fuel in Riot's already flying ship. But what is Demacia? What are the stories that this part of Runeterra have to offer compared to what we've seen in Arcane? In today's cult meeting, we are going to be discussing the lore of Demacia, the characters that are most likely going to show up, and why I believe the Great Mage Rebellion will be the next stepping stone in what I'm calling, in Riot's new franchise, the Legends of Runeterra. But before getting into today's cult meeting, if you enjoy, leaving a like would be awesome as it gets the video out there, and subscribing will help the channel grow as we are growers and not showers. Also, I have a Patreon if you're interested, because YouTube is being a real pain in verifying my identity, because turns out the new national ID in my country doesn't count as valid identification. Also, follow me on Blue Sky and Instagram for updates on what I have in store. Links for all of those are in the description. Now, before knowing what Demacia is and all the stories that are contained within it, we must discuss the basics. Demacia is the shining kingdom of law, order, and surprisingly the good, bad, and absolutely ugly kind of people that you'd love to get around and at the same time you kind of hate. You've got really good people that are really good at heart, and you have people that masquerade as good people but are actually really racist. So if you're a salamander, Demacia is 100% for you. If you're looking for a place where justice is served with a side of nobility and a touch of self-righteousness, bold claim, you've come to the right place. But if you love a good story about false nobility and outright discrimination against mages, and you hate them as much as Jarvan, then, well, Demacia is where you want to be. For all my Warhammer subscribers, the mages here are basically the Eldar to our salamanders. We hate them so much because there is a history behind the Eldar and the salamanders. I will be tackling that in a separate video, so if you like that, hey, might as well stick around, right? But for now, we are going to go in on the history of Demacia. Demacia is a powerful nation known for its rigid adherence of justice, honor, and chivalry. Think of it as a fantasy equivalent of a shiny knightly utopia. You can also maybe call it the Emerald City. Take note of why I reference that. Its culture values loyalty, morality, and unity, which sounds great until you realize that they also have a zero tolerance policy for anything magical. Yep, there's a joke to be said there, but YouTube would nuke the hell out of my monetization. They see magic as dangerous and corrupting, which has led to some very awkward situations. Demacia believes mages and magic are generally evil, making them as a kill on sight, hunt down every magic-sensitive being in the kingdom. Basically, the Empire hunting down every Force-sensitive youngling at that young age and dispersing them as soon as possible. They even have their own branch of Crownguards for this, called the MageSeekers. If the name wasn't obvious enough, these guards are trained to hunt down every single magic-sensitive being in the kingdom. Why do I bring this up? Arcane's third act of Season 2 introduced mages to the audience, building their world even further. Why introduce this if you're not going to show that mages already exist in the world and that there are people blatantly racist against them? I don't know if I can use that word on YouTube, but I'm gonna post this and I'm gonna find out if I get struck by anything, if I get age restricted, but you know, we're gonna fuck around and find out. If you're going to introduce magic users and have the next series about a nation that absolutely despises them, would hook the general audience even more. Look, I get Noxus is a direct sequel to Arcane because, you know, Noxians, Ambessa, they invaded, they love war. Sparta! Zeus, your son has returned, and he brings the... Now, there's a massive possibility that Demacia will happen after Noxus, but, you know, Demacia kind of seems like the right direction to go. But it makes sense why Noxus is going to be the next nation because it was already established in Arcane, and I think Noxus transitioning into Demacia makes much more sense because they're rival countries, and we'll get more into that later. But for now, we need to push forward in Demacia's lore. From the outside, it looks like a straight-up Disney kingdom, with lush forests, farmlands, and towering mountains made out of Petricite. Now, what is Petricite? Petricite is a magical stone that absorbs and nullifies magic. It's great at keeping rogue wizards at bay, but not so fun when you're born with magical abilities yourself. You can imagine how hard it is for magic users to travel in and out of Demacia without getting stopped by the gates before entering. Demacia doesn't exactly make it easy for just anyone to get into their lands. If you're a mage, then I'm sorry, but you can't get into Demacia without being hauled off into their magic user prison. Oh yeah. Kinda sucks when your newborn baby is actually secretly magic sensitive and you have no idea about this until they're hauled off into Demacia's mage-seeking facilities. More on the magic later, but now I think it's a good time to talk about the characters and what I think are going to be the main points of the show as it was in Arcane. Jarvan the Fourth is the golden boy, literally, and the crown prince. He is actually the fourth Jarvan in the royal dynasty. If it wasn't obvious enough, you know, Jarvan the Fourth. Moving on. He's the embodiment of Demacia's ideals and constantly trying to live up to his father's legacy. Jarvan III. There is a comic that I'll get into that will perfectly showcase this and why he hates mages so much. Did I tell you the dude is into dragons? Yes, Jarvan IV is a motherfucking furry. There's a story out there where he discovers a half-human, half-dragon, from what I remember, Shyvana, who is a champion of League of Legends, and eventually Shyvana becomes a loyal bodyguard for Jarvan of some sorts, and let's all be honest, they definitely bang on the side when they're not doing anything else, because there is no way Jarvan has not thought about hitting a dragon like that before. He's basically the donkey of League of Legends and Runeterra. You can think of him as probably the Jayce of the upcoming season, but I think a better candidate for Jayce is the next person that we're going to be talking about. Garen Crownguard is the might of Demacia and the leader of the dauntless vanguard. He is fiercely loyal to Demacia and his sister Lux, and he'll fight anyone who even looks at the kingdom funny. This dude is the definition of patriotism and loyalty, and at the same time is a really good big brother. Well, 50-50 on the good big brother part, but you get the point. Garen could actually be the key to connecting both Noxus and Demacia, because if you don't know, or if you've really just clicked on this video to know more about Demacia, he is in love with the general of Noxus's daughter, Katarina, which is ironic because Garen and the Hand of Noxus, Darius, are mortal enemies, and dating your mortal enemy's daughter is a sting on your ego, I swear. Oh my god. There were actually concept arts and storyboards of a previous cinematic that got shelved for some reason, but if somehow Riot sees the success of Arcane and the demand for Noxus and Demacia to finally be on the big screen, maybe we'll get to see this specific cutscene of Garen and Katarina sharing the screen and how they fell in love in the first place. That would be so cool because the interactions they have in Legends of Runeterra, the card game, are so adorable. Just listen to this.
I will slay you where you stand. Dinner tonight? You shall fall on your folly. Meet me at the South Docks after dark.
This is the perfect example of Garen being the bridge between Noxus and Demacia, and how I believe he's going to be the main transition from Noxus to the nation of Demacia. Would you believe me if I said that there is a black sheep in the Crownguards? The Crownguards are known to be one of the most loyal of royalty in Demacia, from what I know, and they despise mages as much as Jarvan does. But what if I told you that deep within the Crownguards, there is a naturally born mage? Oh, and if you're not a League of Legends fans, brace yourself. Luxana Crownguard, Garen's younger sister and the secret mage of the Crownguards. Being a magical person in the magic-hating society, you can imagine the stress. And being a Crownguard as well. Whoo! Imagine if that got out into the public. Luxana is who I believe will be the Jinx of the next season of Arcane. I think the series is mostly going to focus around Luxana and the Crownguards, mostly because A, she was highlighted to be the bestie of Jinx in the Wild Rift trailer, and B, she is the perfect conduit and hook for the people to love Demacia, and is the perfect introduction to who I believe is going to be the victor of the series. My GOAT, SYLAS of DREGBOURNE, the wild card. A former mage seeker for his powers, now turned revolutionary with a major grudge against Demacia. His backstory is a big old what happens when push comes to shove. Just a little backstory on who SYLAS is. SYLAS was a naturally born mage that could detect any kind of magic, may it be really weak or really strong in a person. And the MageSeekers used this to their advantage, recruiting SYLAS to seek out all of the mages in Demacia and killing them or imprisoning them. SYLAS betrays the MageSeekers because they were about to kill a youngling that could barely control his powers, protecting the youngling and almost killing a MageSeeker in the process, thus imprisoning him for God knows how long. I need to read up on his lore. But in those years, Luxana finds out about his existence and he becomes a, let's say, a mentor figure for Luxana on how to use her magic and how to properly control it. Now, Lux eventually does catch feelings for SYLAS because who wouldn't? Goddamn, look at that man. But SYLAS decides to use her as a tool for his rebellion, which sucks because, hear me out now, it's not SYLAS's fault in why he thinks this way. He believes that Demacia betrayed him and his people, thus leading into the Great Mage Rebellion. If you want to learn more about SYLAS, do leave a comment and say, let's get this video to 100 likes, and I'll go deeper into SYLAS's lore and why I think he did nothing wrong. Now with SYLAS out of the way, let's start talking about the possible main focus of the season of Arcane that includes Demacia. Demacia's biggest issue is its love-hate relationship with magic. They're cool with magical Petricite when it keeps peace, but they've got a major blind spot for the fact that some of their own citizens are magical. This led to a rebellion, an internal strife, led by SYLAS himself after he breaks from his shackles before being executed, thanks to Lux being there, by the way. You're my GOAT, of course. After breaking free of his shackles, he then uses Petricite. The very thing that was keeping him from using magic is his main weapons on bringing down Demacia and their entire kingdom, which is ironic because using something that shackled you as a weapon to tear down the very thing that you seek to destroy is peak storytelling, absolute cinema. If you want to read more about this, there's actually a comic series that League of Legends has released on the Great Mage Rebellion. I'll leave that in the description, but if you want me to go in depth about that lore, do leave a comment and do like this video. The rebellion erupted into an outright war, with SYLAS and his mage forces clashing against Demacia's military, led by Garen and the dauntless vanguard. The rebellion revealed cracks in Demacia's supposedly perfect society. Many commoners sympathize with the mages, while the noble class doubled down on their anti-magic stance. See, now you see the similarities between Zaun and Piltover with Demacia. It's basically a carbon copy, and it's perfect for the probably third spin-off of the series. SYLAS wasn't just fighting to free mages, he wanted to topple the entire Demacian system, exposing its hypocrisies and bringing the kingdom down to its knees. However, his methods were brutal, leading to a lot of collateral damage. Some mages began to question if SYLAS was liberating them or using them as pause for his vendetta. Oh, you like Transformers 1 and you really vibe with Megatron and you quote-unquote think he did nothing wrong? Yeah, you're gonna love SYLAS. The current state of the rebellion is technically ongoing in the lore, with SYLAS and his mages revolutionaries still waging war against Demacia. However, the conflict has left the kingdom fractured. Even among non-mages, there's growing resentment towards the nobility of their iron-fisted rule and refusal to adapt. Meanwhile, SYLAS continues his campaign, showing no signs of backing down. The Great Mage Rebellion isn't just about SYLAS or mages. It's a symbol of what happens when a society refuses to evolve. Demacia's facade of justice and equality has been ripped away, exposing the true rot underneath. The soil Demacia is built on is ancient magic. They don't even know that the soil that they have built their shiny palaces on is built on spilled magic blood. This is shown in the comics. When SYLAS raids the palace and he touches the floors of the palace, he feels an ancient magic coursing through his veins. And it's obvious that Garen has no idea that this magic existed in the palace in the first place, thus giving SYLAS the upper hand. Demacia is basically a nation built on blood and lies. Whether it collapses completely or finds a way to reconcile its ideals with reality is a question still up in the air. But my question is, will Jarvan IV realize his father's vision of a Demacia united without the racism against mages, where mages and the Demacians can live amongst themselves in harmony without being at each other's throats all the time? No more divided nations, no more mages hiding in the slums, and no more MageSeekers. Say it with me now. SYLAS was right. To wrap this up in a nicely anti-mage bow, Demacia is a perfect sequel to Arcane, whether it be after or before Noxus, because either way, the connecting factors between Noxus and Demacia are right there with Garen and Katarina. But if we're going through the stories that Demacia has to offer, the Great Mage Rebellion is the perfect continuation from Arcane to Demacia, and it will further get the general audience invested in the world of Runeterra. But it'll all be up to Riot Games on how they're going to pull the trigger on this. Are they going to push forward with Noxus and introduce the Nation of War? Or are we going to have to wait just a few more seasons of Noxus until we can finally see SYLAS bring down the facade that Demacia proves over and over that their nation is not as great as they think it is? But that's all I got for you in today's episode. What do you think? Do you think Demacia's facade will continue on into the new seasons of the Arcane spin-off? Or will we finally get to see SYLAS tear down that mask Demacia has spread across the lands of Runeterra? Be sure to let me know down in the comments. Now, if this does well, we are going to be doing more lore videos like this about the world of Runeterra, but of course Warhammer is still going to be the main focus of this channel. I'll be delving more into that. I'll probably be doing the Salamanders next year, or maybe this year. It all kind of depends on what I'm feeling, you know? But if you enjoyed, leaving a like would be awesome as it gets the video out there, and subscribing will keep you up to date on the latest cult meetings. That's all from your boy. I hope you have a wonderful day, and in case I don't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.